All right, let's go straight across as we are counting down to the Prime Minister leading the yoga celebrations at the United Nations. Pandit Satish Sharma, author and fellow at the Royal Asiatic Society. Joining us also is Sarah Gates, Hindu Human Rights. From Australasia, we have Dr. Elliot McCarter, Senior Lecturer for Asian Studies at the Vanderbilt University. And Yogacharya Dr. Anand Balyogi Bhavnani, Director at the Institute of Salutogenesis and Complementary Medicine of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth University. Couldn't have a better set of people to talk about their varied experiences and the importance in this day and age. But I want to start with you, Pandit Satish Sharma. How did you first of all observe Yoga Day? Was there participation in London, for example, only limited to the Indian diaspora, or have you seen a greater participation and a greater acceptance across ethnicities?
Pranamji, namaskar, and I couldn't start a conversation without Om Guru Bhyo Namaha, especially a conversation about Yoga Bhyas. And I know my dear friends who are on the panel will also appreciate that. My goodness, what a wonderful phenomenon we're witnessing. Have you ever seen so many people in so many different parts of the world doing one simple thing, and that's looking after their bodies, their minds, and their spirits? This is almost like a global moment of self-awareness, of swadhyaya, of self-reflection. And my day started, as it always does, with an element of yoga bhyas and then conversations with dear friends who were also celebrating it. I had the good fortune to be able to speak to my own Yogacharya ji, who has been guiding me. It's an extraordinary day. Yesterday, we witnessed amazing celebrations in Trafalgar Square. I've seen celebrations here in parks around Windsor Castle, and Yoga Bhyas is being done. It's a delight. It's really, I would say it's a real manifestation of what Bharat has always had to offer to the world. I remember a conversation in Parliament where a dear friend was speaking with British parliamentarians, and he said, you came and you spent so much time in England, in India, and you took away so much that was shiny, but you left the best things behind. You left Yog Vidya. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring it to you and share it everywhere. So it's truly a wonderful day and a glorious global experience for all of us.
And I think you've definitely started off by putting a smile on everyone's faces. Ms. Gates, do you think that gradually this perception, because even in India, which is really the birthplace, the cradle of yoga, for the longest time there was an association of yoga with saffronization, with only one religion. Do you think gradually those barriers have been broken?
I think the very concept of religion is a Western idea, and I think that the way that Hindus and Indians, as Hindustanis, understand and experience faith is very different to how we see that in the West. And Dr. Ananda Balyogi Bhavnani can help to explain how yoga is part of everyday life for many people, and they see it, whether it's religious or non-religious, they view it as a way of life. And that's how we see it here too in the West. That's how it's taught, and that's how it's become, because people practice it at home, outside their yoga studios, and they make it part of the way they see the world. And this is the most valuable gift from India, is to change how people understand and see the world, to make it one, to see that union between one another and with nature. So I think that's a wonderful gift, and it's a gift that keeps on giving and flourishing.
Absolutely. And Yogacharya ji, since Ms. Gates has anyway said that you will best be able to explain how, it's not limited to any religion. It was really a part of all of our lives. It was the most innocuous part of our lives growing up, to get up and do a Surya Namaskar, whether it is a child, whether it is an 80-year-old man. It was so commonplace. But over time, either it was only very few people in India, maybe, in rural India who were limited to doing it, or maybe the yoga studios in Miami who were doing it. Now it is more democratic, would you say?
Well, in the process of democratization of yoga, we must not forget the source of yoga. And the source of yoga is Sanatana Dharma. So you don't have to be Hindu to practice yoga. You don't have to be Indian to practice yoga. but you must acknowledge the fertile soil of Bharat from which yoga has come as a gift to humanity. Because when we acknowledge the source, when we give reference to context, it is cultural appreciation, if not cultural misappropriation. And I think the International Day of Yoga gives us a very special 24 hours to pay our debt of gratitude to the great rishis of Bharat who have given us this wonderful way of life, a way of life that enables us to transcend the subhuman tendencies, rise in our humane qualities, and attain our divinity. So yes, yoga is for all, even if all may not be for yoga.
But Balayogi ji, you know what you've said, its association with Sanatan Dharma, that'll get a lot of hackles up in India. How do you make the differentiation between yoga's Sanatan Dharma roots and so-called Hindutva links?
Well, you know, this whole concept of Hindutva is just a political angle to the whole tinge. And we have to understand that Sanatana Dharma has been long before any political party existed or any political ideology existed. So Sanatana is timeless. We are talking of a timeless tradition, not of a religious organizational hierarchy. So I think if we understand yoga as a methodology to connect us as an individual with the universal, that is the priceless teaching of Sanatana Dharma, not to be limited to an organizational structure.
Dr. McCarter, you also have spent a considerable amount of time in India, especially in Haryana. Tell us about some of your experiences specifically about your brush with yoga.
You know, yoga is really very interesting because here in the United States, many people do practice it, both as a physical practice to which a subset of those individuals will ascribe certain spiritual and metaphysical beliefs as well. It can be associated with certain spiritual beliefs, but doesn't necessarily have to be so. You know, brushes with yoga in India, especially in Haryana, I used to stay frequently in a town you may know called Kurukshetra, was really very interesting. There weren't often these large yoga programs, but rather something that people would do daily in their homes as part of their morning wake-up routines, or at any time during the day, well, just to sort of help them physically and feel better and mentally prepare for the day. So that's sort of how I view yoga. And I think that generally speaking, most people view yoga as a positive, healthy activity. And I think that the Prime Minister of India has done a great job of taking this positive activity, affirming its identity with India, and promoting India and India's identity and India's brand through this activity.
So tell me, since you've been, you know, in Kurukshetra, how would you compare the practice of yoga, say, in Kurukshetra and then in California, or in India and in the United States? I'm always very curious, and I'll tell you the reason why I asked this. I've always wondered, the kind of yoga that we see practiced outside of India, is it even the real yoga? You know, when I see all this power yoga, dancing yoga, aerobic yoga, have we sort of moved away from the essence of yoga itself?
Sure. So I think that's a really interesting question. And I think that there is, like you say, there's a broad variety of types of yoga that are practiced. I think with, you know, something that we're calling here a timeless tradition, we must also allow for a certain amount of innovation and progress. So if someone has found something called yoga and they've adapted it in a way that they have found useful and beneficial, why not? But like you say, acknowledging its roots and acknowledging where it comes from is an important part of appreciation of culture.
Absolutely. And let's hope that, you know, while keeping the essence intact, we can also make it more accessible, more acceptable to a wider range of people. Let me go straight across, in fact, to my